Okay, we'll add that later. So uh everybody unmute and good evening and welcome to Theater Talk Live. I'm your co-host Kenneth Hinton along with Michelle Millay, and our special guest tonight is Philip Bernard Smith. How you doing, Philip?
I'm wonderful and grateful. How are you?
I'm doing great. You work all the time. Do you
Yeah,
ever rest?
yeah, yeah. You got to, at my age, you got to keep moving or you'll get stiff.
Okay. Michelle, go ahead. I've got to turn this sound down real quick. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So, I would like to ask you about your beginning. Like, how did all of this come about? As far as, being, because you have a journey
I do.
and you went through different phases. So, let's talk about the very beginning. Like, how did that start?
Well, that's great. Thank you for saying journey because I'm still on it. I
Yeah.
still got some more in me. But I started, I graduated from Appalachian State Communications degree in 91. And I went back home to Winston-Salem and got a job working for the newspaper. It was a black newspaper there called the Winston-Salem Chronicle. And I got a job as advertising executive on commission. And I wasn't doing too good. My boss told me to go sell an ad to Larry Leon Hamlin, who was founder of the North Carolina Black Repertory and the National Black Theater Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to sell him an ad. I had my I need a job suit on, Christian Dior and the tie and the haircut and everything. Sat down and presented my sales pitch, and I was halfway through the middle of it, and Larry had his shades on, chain smoking, and he just looked at me and said, "Can you sing?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, sing something." I said, "Right now?" He said, "Right now." So I sang the song, and he said, "Good. You can sing, you can dance, be at my audition tonight at 7:00.
Wow. Look at God.
Yep. I said, "Well, what about the ad?" He said, "We'll talk about that later." So I got there, and he cast me in my first musical, "Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope"
That's
by
a
Mickey
great
Graham. And that was a touring company. So I got my first paycheck from the North Carolina Black Repertory. I toured with that we went to New Jersey Crossroads Theater and I think a couple other shows in between. And I got my feet wet. And
But hold on.
Okay, yeah. So,
What?
Go ahead, Michelle.
okay, so you went in for a job.
Went in for an advertise to sell an ad.
And had no thought, no background of acting, none whatsoever.
Nope.
No acting training or nothing.
No training, no.
I could sing. That was about it.
That was about it. Okay, keep going. Okay, go ahead, Ken. That is truly amazing.
I told Ken earlier before we started, I said, that's gonna be a story because Larry was the type of person, if you had the blessing to be around him, he would basically just tell you what you were gonna do. And he gave me a job selling advertisements for the Souvenirs Journal for the National Black Theater Festival, which was going to be in 93. So I had a job from basically 92 up until 93 till the festival came. And I was to sell the ads in the Souvenir Journal. But while I was there, he said, "I'll teach you how to be an actor." And so he gave me a job where I could pay my bills working in the office. And after work, I got on the boards with him and he showed me how to be an actor.
Well, did anybody tell you had a radio voice?
Well, yeah, I went to school for communications. Yeah,
right.
And I thought I was going to get into, because they made it back then, radio, TV,
right?
That's so when you got your degree, you could do at least one of them somewhere in the mailroom. So that's where I started. Somebody's mailroom, and then you work your way up.
Right. That's you go.
But Larry had a different plan for me. I mean, he insisted that we wear a suit and a tie, and of course, I wanted to look like an actor. He was like, "No, You come to work in a suit and tie every day. You answer that phone. You be professional. And what I loved about it was he taught me the business first
Mhm.
of this industry that we love. And then I got a chance to get on the boards with him. My first straight play was The Meeting, and Larry played Malcolm, and Nathan
Right.
Freeman
That's
played Dr. King, and I was the
right.
bodyguard, Rashad, for Malcolm X. That was my first show.
Okay.
That was the first straight show, a musical, and
Yeah.
then the first straight show. So yeah, I was part of that company for that time, and then the festival came, and I got on the stage, main stage, with Phyllis Yvonne Stickney, and that's another story. I don't know if y'all want to hear all of that, but that
Yeah,
was
we do.
another story. I got
But
on. Yes,
go ahead.
So is that when you got bit by the bug? Where did you like, when did you build that confidence? You already knew that you can
Right.
sing. So then it's like, okay, now I got a taste of acting. Did you feel like, I can do this and make this into something going forward? You get what I'm saying? Like, when did
Yeah.
you feel like I'm confident and I want to, pursue and move forward?
Do we ever get there? I mean, well, I understand that, I was in my early 20s at that time, and I didn't want to do anything but have fun.
Right.
And Larry kind of promised me that.
Gotcha.
I said to him one day, Larry, what does the actor do? And he said, whatever he want to do. And when he said that, I said, okay, that sounds like fun. And so I knew I wanted to have fun. I didn't have much skill on the boards, but I knew I wanted to have fun. And that interaction between the audience and the character that you was playing was just so exciting for me. I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning, but I was around the people who did,
Right.
And so I kind of knew graduating from college that I was going to do something, in communications beyond the typical sit at a desk and sit at a cubicle. Something told me that I would be doing something like that. I just didn't know what. And don't get me wrong, Michelle, I dabbled around. We had a talent show there. When I was in college, I started my own production company called Fade to Black, and we did talent shows, and we shot film and all that kind of stuff. We ran the radio station. So I kind of played around, with the idea that I was going to produce something or be something famous, but it wasn't anything on a professional level till I met Larry, But I had been writing sketch comedy and silly little things. I wrote a poem that got published in the newspaper at school and while I was in college. And I met Dr. Maya Angelou. That's an interesting story. Kenny, you want to hear that one?
Yes, we want to hear that one.
So I called her mama. I got permission to call her mama. She came to the convocation, and it was the year I was graduating. And she got in front of all of these folks, and she was something. And she said, I want all the young Black men in here to take out a piece of paper and a pencil and write this down and put it to memory. She said, my woman is fat and chocolate to the bone. And every time she shake, a skinny woman loses her home.
Wow.
It took me years to comprehend that.
Right.
But I was so fascinated with her that I kept a piece of paper and pencil, and I stood outside the door, and I looked out there in the cul-de-sac, and there was a silver stretch limousine. I knew it was her limousine. And I said, well, she's got to come out this door to get to that limousine. And when she does, I'm going to ask her for her autograph, and I'm going to meet Dr. Maya Angelou. And I waited. Michelle, I waited. Kenny, I waited. I looked in there. They were sweeping up the place. Car still sitting there, and she never came out. I was heartbroken.
Oh, wow.
Where'd she go?
Something inside of me, this is a true story. Something inside of me said, walk towards that back window of that limousine. It was sitting there in the roundabout. And as I started walking towards the back of that limousine, that window came down. And there she was, watching me the whole time.
Wow, that's a story.
Tears in my eyes. I went up to her. Her hands came out the window and grabbed mine and kind of pulled me in close, And
Yeah.
she asked me what my name was. I told her my name. She said, "Work hard, my son, but that don't mean don't have no fun."
That's right.
And I said, "Oh, you called me son. Can I call you mama?" She said, "Yes, you can."
Oh,
And I said, "I'm from Winston-Salem." She said, "Well, when you graduate, you come see me." She was teaching at Wake Forest.
Wake Forest, right? Yeah.
So
yeah.
I went and I sat in some of her classes and audited some of her
Okay.
classes and told myself that I was going to be a writer and a poet. So I had my little spiels with that. And so eventually, I knew at some point the roads would come together. And so with the help of Phyllis Siobhan Stickney, she had a friend who told her that I could write. And Phyllis had wrote a piece for the festival in '93 called Big Mama Nim. And it was 5 women. And she played all these different characters. But she
One
had to
woman
go by
show.
one woman show. But she
Okay.
had to go behind a screen and change into her outfit.
Right.
So the young lady that I was seeing at the time, who was a friend, talked me into writing a character for her while she went behind the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the character Cooter Brown.
Coolie Brown.
Cooter Brown was just, the guy in the neighborhood. Everybody know who Cooter. Get a little
Right.
drink in him sometime. He get a little flamboyant. And when I let her read it, she fell out laughing. She said, "Okay, you wrote this. Now you're going to perform it."
Wow.
And I could not believe that. And there I was on the main stage at the National Black Theater Festival. After Larry had fired me, mind you, I came back to perform at the festival, and it was a sellout show.
Wow.
So that was to answer the question, that long-winded answer on the show. That's how I knew I was going to do something with it, because after that show, I started getting, contacts. And when you get to New York, call me. Here's my number, da, 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 da. Of course, when I got to New York, they didn't remember me. So that's how it works.
That is.
Yeah.
Michelle, this man came, I was doing You Ain't My Daddy, and one of the cast dropped out 2 days before the show opened, and I reached out to Phillip, and he showed up and was going to do that role. I was floored. But what happened was, one of my casts that I work with at Central had found a guy who was working on it. But I was so honored that you came and was willing to do that small role in that show. That was 2015, way back then.
You had one of your questions you were going to ask me about, what should we tell the young people? And that's what I believe. I believe that that's what we have to do. And I came out of Black theater.
Right.
So
naturally, when we just met, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I came out of Black theater. Larry Leon, the National Black Theater Festival, North Carolina Black Repertories, found me, discovered me, molded me, and then pushed me out of the nest. Said, "All right, go somewhere and do something." And so I went to New York. I worked in Baltimore. I worked at Arena Players in Baltimore. Brother Orange. And then I went to Detroit. I worked at Plowshares with Brother Gary Anderson. So I moved around to different crossroads, moved around to different Black theaters, because we were all connected, because we came together every 2 years in Winston-Salem. So you always had a place to kind of go.
Where did you, real quick, perfect this craft? You are a deep actor. We try to train our actors to go as deep as you go. And to hear you just walked on the stage, I mean, come on. I mean, how did you develop that?
I don't know. I wish I could I would be sitting up here sounding like I'm so, I don't know.
Yeah.
God, it's like,
just got talent, right? Got that talent.
Those preachers that get up there and they get in the pit and it just come on them.
Exactly.
That's a feeling that I feel like, is kin to, because of how I was surrounded by folks who I had grew up watching them on television. Right. And then when they came to Winston-Salem, it was like the TV just came alive. Hattie Winston and Esther Rose, Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee, Della Reese. They just kind of and you were like, they were, hey baby, come here, go get me a piece of so. Man, I'm like, oh my God, this is, you know what I mean? So I came into it around all of these people who put their arms around me,
Right.
Dick Anthony Williams, the greats, the greats, I call them the greats. And so they would say, all right, we need you, we need you to get it together, let's go, let's do it.
Let's do
And
it.
so that, I think, had a lot to do with it in terms of just saying, I have an obligation and responsibility to work. And so, Black Theater, you had to be a triple threat, and you had to be on time.
Yeah,
And you had to
yes.
work it. You had to work the box office. You had to sweep up. Wasn't no stars. Wasn't no concept of you think you this and that. There was none of that, because you had to. It took everybody to make the whole thing work. The great Roscoe Lee Brown said, "Never mistake your presence for the event."
Right. All right.
It ain't about you; it's the work. So
That's true.
that's what it is. You get in there, you know that there's work to do. It doesn't come together unless you you don't come to rehearsal to rehearse. You come to rehearse to you already did your work at home.
That's right. That's hard to teach my students that we can't work on character if you don't know the lines.
Exactly.
If you don't know the dialogue, how can I get to the character that you're supposed to be?
Absolutely.
And you do that on your time, not on my
time. That's not happening in rehearsal.
Right.
No. So I think to answer that question, if you go back to it, I think that's more than 50% of it. Is that just the preparation?
Right.
Being prepared. I read the script 10 times before I even think about what the character is about. You have to do all of that first before you call yourself an actor, and then you get into the work once you get there.
So I guess, in the beginning, you started off, like you said earlier, you go for a job, communications background, you became an actor. Then what was the next step or next talent that you realized during this journey?
Well, you got to eat. That's the other thing. And so it was always a challenge as a young man trying to figure out what to do until the next job came.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fortunately for me, I had a lot of different gifts. I had a lot of things that I could do very well. Mainly, I could talk. So I could talk myself into a job and get in there and not know what I was doing, but figure it out. Back then there was call centers. Like today, you were on the phone trying to sell somebody a Bally's membership or a Citibank card. So
you can't get nobody on the phone now. You can't get nobody on the phone now.
No. You're going to talk to a robot. But back then, that was the job. And so one of the gifts was, if you had a talk box, you could get on that phone and just, and talk people, down off the cliff. So I always had some type of gig that I was doing. Fortunately, those things can kind of run into your craft. And unless you stay close to a community that is concerned about you, you can find yourself drifting off into other things, which is what I did, Michelle. So I didn't stay committed because I was so young and rambunctious. I said all that to really say I was wild, but I got out into the world. But then to swing back around, Kenneth, to answer your question, I think that's also what gives my characters character, because I got out into the woods. And when you get out into the woods of life and you get lost, you learn. I think that's part of it. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but for me in my journey, I got out into that space and started talking to different kinds of people and learning from folks who just let me stick around long enough to feed me or talk to me. I can't tell you how many conversations at sitting, in some cafe or some bar talking to, all kinds of folks just sharing their life story with me. And so then when I get on the stage, miraculously, those characters, they support what you're trying to do. on a personal level and not just something that you've theorized, because to me, the creative process is not a formula in any kind of way.
Mhm.
It is a journey that you take and a commitment, and an understanding of humanity that you have to bring with you, a vulnerability about it.
And I think that is so important. And I would say life experiences can build character, whether it's a successful, I don't want to necessarily call it a mistake because sometimes you just got to learn from it. But I think also those experiences, like you said, will help build the character that you're creating. Um, so I think what you were experiencing, even if you're in your wild moment, that's a character that you can create. You know what I'm saying? To then show, I guess, the growth
Yeah.
of that character. So,
Yeah,
you know,
you're
you did
right. Yeah, it took
but we all go
those
through that.
experiences. You're right. They take you to
Mhm.
many different places, and I use wild loosely because those places were not necessarily places of ill repute. I ended up as for example, a material handling manager for Ford Motor Company, and then off to General Motors when I was up in Detroit. So I made a lot of money, and I got a lot of experience, but I had no background whatsoever in manufacturing at all, making cars. But I was
Mhm.
around people who were 3 and 4 generations of people who were in the automotive industry, and I learned a great deal about that. So these different types of experiences that I had were not necessarily, you know, irresponsible, but they just took me on these different places in the world. I lived in a co-op across the street from the Peabody Conservatory, and all of my neighbors played some form of instruments for their life's journey. And so I was able to understand music on a whole nother level because I was
Mm.
around this community of musicians who drank, slept, ate, thought everything from that lens. So these journeys help build an understanding that I think only life can kind of teach you about.
So you could play like a homeless person or down on a luck musician
Yep.
really well, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I
You
can.
know, do you know Hawthorne James,
Yeah.
the
Big
actor?
Red. Big
Big
Red.
Red,
I
yeah.
do.
I
I
think
do.
everybody knows Big Red.
I do. He
Well,
he
I,
comes every
I
year to
met
the festival.
I met him at the festival, and him and I became friends. And I sent him some video of his performance in the homecoming. Oh my goodness! To see this man on film is
Yep.
one thing, but to
Mhm.
see him live on stage is something about the stage that film just can't. And when you're an actor like you are, I could see you in film, but you're too big, you know, for a lot of film. You need to be on stage.
Well, I tell you, that's kind of one of the questions I wanted to answer that you had for me,
Okay.
because when those people came back to Winston Salem, I'm talking about, you know, I got hugged and loved and a kiss from Pam Grier. Okay. I remember Pam
Okay.
Grier as a little boy sitting in the movie theater,
Yep.
right? And there he was, live.
Black exploitation films, right?
Yeah. So I think for me, the only world that I had access to was television. But
Mm.
thanks to the National Black Theater Festival, I got to see these people in person. And then when I did the research, I found out that they had years of experience with the
Hmm.
Negro Ensemble, and the New Heritage.
Yes.
And they had been
Hmm.
working and crafting their art for years before I was born. And so I think what you're doing, what you guys are doing now with this project that you're doing now, you're taking
Right.
this technology, which is a digital platform, but you're
Right.
showing us that these artists have a long history. They've been around
Yes.
for a long time, and we are resting on their shoulders. We are
Yeah.
we are not just here because we cute.
That's right.
We are
Yep.
here because they have created an enormous landscape for us, to embody. And so I think now this generation has to understand that the only way to continue this is to know the history of theater, particularly Black theater, and what we brought to the contributions of this American landscape.
Let me just say this real quick, Michelle. We were in one of my classes at North Carolina Central. We were studying Raising in the Sun, which we'll talk about in a minute that Phillip was going to direct. But we were watching the film with Sidney Poitier. And so when Asa guy came in, I stopped it. I said, do y'all know who that is? None of the students know who that was. I stopped the film. I paraded my class through the halls of North Carolina Central University, stopped at a bulletin board that showed Ivan Dixon was a 1954 graduate of North Carolina Central University's Department of Theater. And here he is on the big screen, and you don't know who that is?
Right.
Wow.
I mean, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yes. And plus, we have a group called the Ivan Dixon Players, and
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So you got to know your history.
That's
you know.
That's right. I think that is what benefits me the most as an artist, to know my history, to know I have a general understanding of theater that goes all the way back to the 17th century, but I know specifically and very acutely the journey of Black theater.
Right.
And it has its own rhythms. It has its own culture. It has its own dynamics, its own aesthetics that is, indigenous to us. And so when I'm trying to find character, which is one of your questions, I go where I belong, because I can't duplicate something that doesn't represent me. And I get into this argument a lot with people who try to say, blind casting and all that kind of stuff. And there's a very strong reach that, and there are a few characters who can do that. I'm just believing that you have to have a clear sense of who you are and what you bring to the story. And I think that studying that history and knowing that history, it emboldens you, and you never walk on the stage alone. You always there with your ancestors. And I would have paraded them around the entire university if they didn't know who Dixon was. So they would be glad I'm not their professor. But I believe that they deserve every opportunity for us to speak their name, that African saying that as long as you say their name, they still live. And then tell it the right way.
That's right.
That
tell it the right way.
Version of Paul Robeson as a communist is a story, is a narrative for a part
it
of
really is
political
blackball.
Right.
Blackball.
But it was really blackball, which we're seeing today with a lot of artists, in the industry right now who have stood up for their political beliefs. It's no different. And there's no shock treatment. There's no media. Kaepernick, exactly. That's not a surprise. That is nothing new for us who've done our research and know that has always been an agenda, a narrative that I personally am diametrically opposed to, and I am here to dismantle it the moment I hear it. So, when y'all said y'all want me on y'all show, I said, y'all show.
Yeah, we want you on our show.
I'm not the goody two shoes one that might, there's space for all of us. Let me say
yes,
that.
Absolutely.
There's space for all of us. I'm not here to tear anybody down in any kind of way, but I'm going to tell you what I like. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to tell you my journey. And I think there's room. I just think that there's room and it's necessary. And I think what you all are doing, continuing the dialogue and the discussion and bringing folks like me who usually are told, be quiet before you start something. I mean, even in Raisin, doing that show, directing that show, we had cast members who didn't want to approach it as strongly and as intensely as I was trying to bring it. And these were African-American folks who felt like I was just being a little too much
militant.
Yeah. But, Can't recast, but next time you just know better. But
But, but at the end of Raising, when Walter Lee is saying that he just invited the white man over to get his money, and he don't care if he has to get on his knees
right.
and say, "Mr. Charlie, give me that money." I don't care.
Lorraine Hansberry was so
She did.
before her time.
She
I
was.
mean, she is still talking to us now.
Yes.
She's still telling us the journey that we're on. That is a show that is timeless. It
really is.
timeless.
Because Mr. Linder is going to pay them twice as much as the house is worth just because we don't want you in our neighborhood. That's how bad we don't want you here.
That is the core of so much of our Black Lives Matter now. Everything that's going on now, she was so ahead of her time.
Yeah.
She was so ahead of her time.
And it's still here.
Yeah.
It's still here.
She was brilliant. I mean, and I also give credit to Philip Rose, who took the chance to put it out there. I mean, there were so many naysayers that said it would never have a commercial tail. It would never last. And, she beat out Eugene O'Neill and all kind of folks for the award that year. And it's still it's being
still
performed.
relevant.
It's still relevant.
Yep.
Yeah. So God willing, I will get the chance to.
I hope you do, because Michelle, he was going to produce and direct this at Raleigh Little Theater, and COVID hit in March of 2020, and he never got to talk about that a little bit, Philip.
Well, I mean, I have to give a lot of credit to the fact that I never directed anything before, and I actually I must say, I kind of thumb my nose up at directing. All right, I'm just be real with you. I didn't think.
Yeah, I'm a director now.
I know. I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because I learned. I'm always learning. I was directed by a wonderful director, Kathy Williams, and she directed me, Mike Wiley, in Radio Golf.
Radio Golf. I saw that. I saw you in that, and both of y'all.
She was amazing. She taught me so much just listening to her. And she said every good actor should direct and every good director should act. And I was like, I said, directors direct because they can't act. Why did I say that?
Oh, my goodness.
Did she get you?
Well, she's both. So it didn't faze her at all. She's
Me
incredible.
too.
She's incredible on stage and as a director. So she didn't, and she realized how naive I was, to direct. Because when you're like so into acting, you don't want to think about anything else. But years passed, and I reconsidered it. And the opportunity presented itself. And with a little help from some great friends, I took the chance to do it. And I had a good cast. And I think that was the solution to it. They were willing to work with me and grow with me. And it was going to be huge. I just saw all the bells and whistles about to come off, and then COVID hit. Oh, man.
Wow. This was going to be your first time directing.
Yep.
It was going to be a Raisin in the Sun.
What a show. And he had Malcolm Green, one of my former students.
He was playing Walter Lee. Yep.
I've directed him in several shows. Yeah.
And Patrick Torres had directed me in The Whipping Man.
Right. I saw
Patrick
that.
Torres
told me.
Yeah, he told me, I think you should be a director. And I'm like, I said the same thing. And he just kept, and I love it.
He saw it in you.
Yeah.
See?
Yes. I love it. And he saw something in me. He said, just give it a try. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm going to be there with you the whole time. And he just supported that process, and he's still there. So directing is the new journey. I'm reading everything I can, Kenny, about how you do it. And, I would love to shadow you. I just sit around and just observe how it works, trying to reach out to Kenny Leon and see, his method, and I've read his book and I just, just studying the concept. And I thought about it. Larry was a director. The person
Yeah,
who
he
brought me
was.
into acting was actually
Mm.
also a director, and it never crossed my mind because I was just so blown away with seeing him on the stage. But
Well, the last time I was on the stage was in 2019 also, and I was in Trouble in Mind, and I played the guy, can't think of his name now, but he was the older black guy, but I directed it too, and this is never, I'll never do this again. When we on stage and we are doing a scene, and then I stopped the scene and started directing, and they said, "Professor Hinton, can you stay in character? Can you please stay in character? We can't get our lines if you keep stopping us." So it's really hard, man. It's
I
really
couldn't
hard to
imagine.
stay inside and not step on the other side of the camera, right? And look
Right.
back at the scene to adjust it. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm currently in the graduate program at North Carolina School of the Arts for filmmaking.
Oh, good.
So this is
Excellent.
my first semester. Thank you. Pursuing. Well, first of all, let me back up. 18 years ago, before I came up in this area in 2002, I went to school there for filmmaking, and I stayed there a couple of semesters, and I didn't like it, and so I left. So 18 years later, I'm back. They didn't have a graduate program back then, and I already had a degree, so I kind of figured. Also, I had already produced several movies before I had gotten to school. So by the time I had gotten there, they were kind of, behind me. I wanted to do other stuff, and they wanted me to kind of slow pace it, so I didn't want to stick around. But I'm there now, and it's a creative producing program. So, Kenneth, one of the things that I'm learning is all the pieces that come together,
Mm-hmm.
with finding the right director, finding the right, money sources, finding the right set designers, and all these kind of things. It's just another level of what we're after.
Yep, it
I
sure is.
In 2017, I joined CTI, which is a program in New York called Creative Commercial Theater Institute, and they teach you basically how to be a Broadway producer.
Okay.
So I had taken that route, and then said, you know what if I just combine them all and get
Right.
an MFA, and I can also continue to teach like you
Right.
with this terminal degree. So I'm trying to squeeze all of it together, but as you say, trying to do multiple things at one time, that's an enormous challenge. But I'm up
That's
for the challenge.
Michelle.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, I have to. I don't know. I will say working on multiple things at one time, it is definitely a challenge. This is why you got to stay in prayer. So that way that you can get through it all. But I will say doing so, staying focused and making sure that you don't stretch yourself thin. Because
Right.
even though we have goals and aspirations and trying to be successful in all, we cannot give all of our focus and our thought process as creatives
Right.
if we're stretched too thin.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, even doing so, it's like you got to take a moment and say, okay, I'm going to dedicate X amount of time. But then once you do all of that, you got to take time for yourself. So that way you can come back and be refreshed. So
I
just
am learning that
pace
journey. That's rough, but I hear every word you're saying. It's so informative. Thank you.
You
So let's talk about your time at JTP. My friends over at Justice Theater Project.
Well,
You did several productions with them.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Just talk about the
JTP
production. Actually, is what I'm talking about.
The first show I did there was actually the Mountaintop,
Right.
and wonderful young man, Jade Arnold, was
A friend of mine directed him too.
Yeah, Jade, wonderful actor. We worked together in Jim and the Ocean, and he was doing his first directorial debut with the Mountaintop. And I called him and I said, I want to be Martin. I want to be Martin. And so he cast me in that. And so that was my introduction to JTP.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you did a fabulous job in Mountaintop too.
Thank you. And after
I've
that,
seen all your shows, man. Ain't that something?
Thank you, man. Thank you. I did that, and then The Color Purple came up, and they had
Yeah.
an incredible actor who was going to play Mister, but he got a better opportunity, so he stepped away from it, and they wanted me to do it, and I was like, but eventually I did it.
Yeah,
And
you were very
what
mean too. You were
I
mean.
fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the people. It was just instantaneous. I see people, and then I find myself, because I was teaching at the time. I can't wait to get off work so I can get over there and start, hanging out with the actors. It was a big
Mhm.
cast, and I
Great
got to,
cast.
and I got to Color Purple. I got to be the roommate in the dressing room with Baba Chuck.
Oh yeah, Baba
And
Chuck.
so, Baba had his own little area over there. We'd be sitting over there like, Baba, what's this? And that was just a joy, just a joy to be around him and, listen to him and learn from him and, and have him love on you. And so it was just one huge family from one thing to the next. And so after that, Porgy and Bess, of course,
Yep.
was another piece that we actually took the whole cast down to Charleston, South Carolina, and went to the Gullah Geechee Festival and got our full of what it was like to be, Gullah Geechee, and then used that and implemented that in the show. And I thought it was brilliant. I just thought it all came together. So yeah, it's been a great time. Haven't done anything over there since, but it's been a good time. It was a good time.
Great.
So even though that unfortunately COVID happened and it kind of put a pause in your production of that show. So since then, what are your projects? So what have you been working on since COVID? Since COVID happened, because I know, like with us being presenters, we're limited to what performances we bring in, audience, social distancing, things of that nature. And in the past, some of our artists have stated that they come to learn something new about themselves.
Yeah.
And they were embracing that. So what was it, like, what were you doing during that time of COVID?
Getting fat. I mean, it's always been a journey for me. I was still teaching, and for entire year, for the most part, we were teaching virtual. So
Okay.
Yes,
I had to adapt to just what we're doing right now, and I couldn't stand it. I'm a classroom teacher. I have to be inside the room.
Me too.
And so I recently just, retired from teaching in the classroom, middle schoolers, and pursuing this other career. But in between that, I got to direct the Mountaintop for Raleigh Little Theater. So after doing it, I did it twice. I did it for JTP, and then I was cast out of New York to do it in Clarksville, Tennessee, at the Roxy Regional Theater.
Okay.
So I did the performance twice. And it's kind of like you, Kenny. When I was trying to direct it, I kept getting into the character.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, we know you know it, but we need to know it.
Right.
So that was one of the, post-COVID projects that I did that was outside in the amphitheater at the Raleigh Little Theater. So we were able to get away with it and went really well. And so that was one of the projects that I was just very excited about. And I'm currently working on American Son, which is going to be performed next year in January at the North Raleigh Art. What is it?
North Raleigh Creative Arts
and Theater and Creative something. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful theater.
INRAC, we call it INRAC.
Yeah, INRAC. It's a beautiful theater, beautiful people, and we have an incredible cast. We did our first read. And so I'm really excited about this piece because it's right up my alley. Because it deals with, the controversy of race in America. It also addresses the issue of police brutality.
Who's directing that?
I'm sorry.
Who's directing that?
Me.
You directed it, right?
Me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you were in it. You're not directing and in it.
No,
you just directing it.
I'm directing it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So I'm back in the director's chair. So I'm doing that.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm working with a strong cast of actors who are already ready. They came to the read. I already knew that they had been in their book. and they are
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. It's going to be a great show. And so I'm working on that. And then next year, hopefully, you'll see me on the stage again in a
Okay.
couple of
I'm gonna have
shows.
to put you in something though. I'm gonna put you in something. Don't worry.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
You
so
know,
so,
if you're directing, how do you go about finding your cast?
well, a lot of times, with the local theater
mhm.
companies, they hold the auditions. We did do it both virtual and we did it in person. Um, for my film work, however, though, I have a lot of people who are better at casting than your usual suspects. You just don't do a cattle call. You know who you want for the
Mm.
film, and
Yeah.
so a lot of that is just negotiating. Like, can you do this? You know, for this amount of money versus what you're used to. So I bring in a team of folks who are better at that. Um,
Yeah.
and then, with what my company is trying to do is develop new playwrights, new creatives, new actors, new
Mm-hmm.
producers. That's what we're about. Bringing your idea that you have, that you for whatever reason don't believe can actually be put on the
Hmm.
stage. We bring you into a space and we show you how that can become something. And that's really my journey right now, is helping discover this next generation of artists who are going to carry on this torch. That's what
And
Mahali stage production is about.
that's kind of what Agape does also, because what we want to do is bring to the stage African American stories that you won't see other places. One of the nicest plays that we're doing next March is the Front Porch Society. Excuse me, by Melda Beatty, it was at National Black Theater Festival in 2019 and was great success. And like you said, I didn't have auditions. Now, as a director, I know most of the actors in town. So I got actors from NREC, I got actors from JTP, I got actors from Agape and from other places that I already knew. And then when I put it together, the actor says, you pick the exact people for the roles that they seem to have. How do you do that? Well, you've seen people act, you've seen what their backgrounds are, and then you also have a look also for characters.
Right.
So sometimes having auditions make it so complicated for me sometimes, but I don't. Sometimes I do have auditions. I have had auditions, but this one I did.
Yeah.
So, what about those who are just starting out? So, let's say a few or so that's watching us tonight and is saying, hey, I am really passionate about this Black theater, getting into acting. I have, a little bit of experience, things like that. Like, how can they find where to go to audition, either Ken for you or Philip for you? I mean, both of you have companies. How can they find out? Like, where do they start?
Wow. Is that for both of us or just me?
That's for both of you. I mean, both of you are directors and
I don't
have your
know.
company, but I think
I
about
mean,
those who are
yeah.
watching and that's learning and saying, okay, well, how do I get started?
Well, I think it's a really good question. I think
Mhm.
like my experience,
Mhm.
it found me.
Right.
And I wasn't really aware of what I had. It just kind of found me. And here's the truth: when I came back to North Carolina, and I was in Winston-Salem, and I had left film school the first time, I reconnected with my high school sweetheart, and I
Mhm.
got married, and it's been
Mm.
18 years.
All
And
right.
in that course,
Congratulations.
I had decided, Michelle, that I wasn't going to touch the theater again. If I went, I was going to, buy a ticket and sit in the audience. But as theater will have it, it won't let you go.
Mm-mm.
Once you've been bit, you're going back up there. You could tell yourself all you want
Mhm.
that you're done with it, but as fate would have it, I was back on the stage. And I say that to say that for some people, they're going to find their way there, whether they intentionally do it or not. They're going to find their way on the stage. For other people who need a little boost, you know, Um, my suggestion is source material. Start to read about the artists that you are attracted to, the artists that you like, the stories that you like. I like Black theater, I like Black history. So I started there. And you will find that there is an instantaneous kindred connection to the art. I literally went to a poetry workshop at Winston-Salem State University with Sonia Sanchez back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And she did an exercise with us, Michelle, with a raisin. And we were to, feel the texture of the raisin, smell it, use all of our senses, eat it, and then write immediately after we consumed it, just write whatever came out. And out of that came Walter Lee. And I had no idea what I was writing. And when she read, she said, "You're going to do A Raisin in the Sun." I thought I was going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, I'm directing it, and I never forgot that. And so I believe that it's all around you. You just have to wake up to it. And I think it happens sometimes spontaneously, sometimes spiritually, sometimes you walk head into it and not know that you're there. And then the people who have a sense like Larry had with me, that's our job.
Right.
That's Ken's job. That's your job, Michelle. That's our job to say, you should go, you should try it, you should audition, you should give it a shot. What do you have to lose? All of those kinds of things. That's what our theater community should always be doing. And I think at some point in time that's going to click, and that's going to get that young person on the stage. I was teaching at East Millbrook about 4 years ago, history, and I brought out Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. There was a young lady in there who hardly ever talked, who little did I know was engrossed in it. Now, she went on to high school. I got a call from her, a text from her just a couple of days ago. She's at AMDA in New York. She's starting her career in musical theater. So we never know.
That's right.
We never know who's looking, who's listening, who's learning from us. But we have to be out there with our theater stuff, doing like what you're doing now, what Kendra is doing now, and allowing us to come together so somebody can hear that is possible. Now, of course, you're going to have to get the training. You have to find the right people. Ken, you asked me who were some of my mentors. Of course, Larry Leon Hamlin got me started, but the late Anthony Chisholm took care of me for many of my years, just counseling me and encouraging me. Ted Lange, who directed me in 12th Night, he also directed me in a couple of other his shows. I can pick up the phone and call him. Ron Simons, he's a person that says, this is our job. This is what we're supposed to do. So I believe that's my job. If an actor calls me or reaches out to me on my website, mahoganystageproduction.com, I'm going to call them back. I'm going to find out where they are. Now, I may not be the coach for them, but I say, you know what? You need to go audition for Agape. You need to go to JTP. You need to go to Raleigh Little Theater. And then we get them going that way. But we stick around in the atmosphere, in the universe, and let them know that we're supporting their endeavors, whatever they're trying to accomplish. But we can't do it for them.
That's
so
right.
They have to be able to get over that hurdle. And some people have done it just to get the scary out of them. And now they're better at their lives because they've got the fear out. And then some of them go on to take over the world with the talents. Yeah.
Last time we saw you on stage, at least I did, was 12th Night. You want to talk about that a little bit with the National Black Theater Festival 2019?
Yes. Well, Ted Lange called me and said he had an idea of doing Shakespeare at the festival, which had never been done. And he wanted to do 12th Night, but he wanted to set it in Jamaica. And he wanted to use all Bob Marley music. I said, okay, I got to do this.
Yes.
So he wanted me to play, I forget the character name, the clown, but the clown was a musician. So I got on the guitar and started learning how to play guitar and started learning my lines. And then when we got there, it was outdoors, you know, and it was just, he's just, Ted Lange, first of all, he's a Shakespearean actor. He understands the work, and he broke it down. He gutted it. He gave us the goods, and we just had fun with it. And it was incredible. It was just every night we just had fun playing these characters. But we gave it our own voice. We gave it our own rhythm, because as African people, we've been in this country since the 17th century. We have our own style. We have our own aesthetic. We have our own way we even bury our people different. So why would we try to take on something that we don't know, what it really means to that culture? So we did it the way it meant to us, and it was so powerful, so much fun, And I'll never forget, after the show, I was walking down the street, the festival. There's tons of people everywhere at night, and I walked past this couple, and they go, "Red, red wine." And I just turned to laugh because I knew it got there, And I know, Ken, that's what makes it so much worthwhile today. When
it does.
And it stays in their heart, Michelle, and they carry it with them, and they share that journey with somebody, because we're spreading the joy, we're spreading the love of God, and we're giving it to them in a way that they don't even realize they bought that ticket, but they opened the door to their joy, and that's what we're a part of. And you can't pay me enough money for that. That's something that, God gives you a gift. He says, all right, now go out there and multiply it and give people some joy, make them smile, make them laugh a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to end the show replay with that clip. We don't have it tonight, but we're going to end the replay with it. Any final thoughts, Michelle?
No. Well, yeah, I would definitely say this has been very, very enlightening, and I can't wait to see A Raisin in the Sun, because when I was on the debate team, that was one of the performances. Actually, that was my first movie that I had to watch in the debate team. My assignment was A Raisin in the Sun. So I fell in love with it, and I cannot wait to see it. I will say your experiences are very educational. Continue to share the storytelling that you're doing, because you did it all tonight.
Yes,
and it's very inspiring, and I'm excited for you, just to be honest with you, to see what's to come, because I truly believe there's bigger things coming.
Well, thank you so much. Now, I see a little Benita in you, so if you're ready to get up there on the stage.
I'm going to have to take somebody's class. So,
You know what Benita said? She says, only man makes miracles. There is no God. And that's when she got that slap from my big mama.
That's right.
My house, there is still God. You better say it.
You better say it. She can play it.
I don't know if I can be that sassy, but
yeah, you can.
Well, I have enjoyed both of you. Please invite me back.
You.
This has been a joy for me.
Yes, it has, and we look forward to talking to you again when you're on Broadway or finishing that first feature film. But Agape is going to get you on stage. I just want you to know that.
I'll be ready.
And I'll be sitting there in front row.
Yeah, all right.
I'll be ready.
We're going to say good night, and thanks everybody for joining us on Theater Talk Live.
Good night. God bless.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.